Yes, ma'am. I'll begin. Department of Humanities and Social Sciences, collaboration with Majlis Legal Centre, celebrates World Day of Social Justice by organizing a talk on Know Your Rights. A very good morning to one and all present here. I, Shalini Shivli Sridhar, will be your host for this event. So why have we gathered here? To celebrate World Social Justice Day. And why is World Social Justice Day celebrated? It marks the coming together of people from all walks of life to support the idea of justice, victims' rights, and most importantly, ensuring no crime that jeopardizes peace that takes place. The day is also a reminder of the significance of social justice for the underprivileged and oppressed. Majlis, transforming victims into survivors. A team of women lawyers and social workers who work for the protection and promotion of women and children's rights through legal representation, advocacy, and training. Majlis provides social and legal support to women and children victims of sexual and domestic violence, which is the most evident example of social justice. Now I would like to welcome our guest speaker, Advocate Audrey de Mello, Chairperson of Majlis. A huge round of applause for this extraordinary lady. I would now like to welcome our respected Principal Ma'am, Dr. Lili Bhushan, Vice Principal Sir, Dr. V.S. Kannan, Dr. Sonika Gupta, Dean Faculty of Arts and Head of Department, Kaustubh Sir, Assistant Professor for Sociology and Chairperson of SSA, and all the faculty members of Department of Humanities and all other faculty members and students present over here. I would now request Kaustubh Sir to kindly invite our guest.
Thank you so much, Shalini, for the introduction of the event. So first of all, very good morning to each and every one of you who are present over here. Okay, a very good morning to all the dignitaries who are present in this meet, who has taken time for this wonderful sessions, okay, in which we are going to enlighten by our great guest speaker, Advocate Audrey de Mello ma'am. Okay, so first of all, and also good morning to each and one of you, all the students, all the participants who has joined this meet, okay, from various institutions. All right, so thank you so much to each and everyone. Okay, so I would like to introduce, and that this is my great honor to introduce honorable our guest, Advocate Audrey de Mello ma'am. Advocate Audrey de Mello has been working at Majlis since 2006. She is currently the director. She has a degree in law from the Bombay University and a postgraduate degree in management from Narsi Monji Institute of Management Studies. She heads Majlis comprehensive program on gender and law that involves legal representation and social support of women and children in cases of sexual and domestic violence, legal rights training and campaigns for policy level interventions with a specific focus is to help marginalized women and children access justice. She has helped evolve a number of collaborations with the government to ensure effective implementation of laws. Her other interests are writing research and raising her three wonderful children. We are really thankful to her for taking the time out of her busy schedule to grace our function and enlighten each one of us. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I'm just going to start with a small film.
I never thought that something incident will become in my life. He gave me a punch on my ribs where my 3 ribs got fractured. I was not getting a way that how I have to come out. My friends, colleagues, and all visiting me in the hospital, they had told me about Majlis.
It's a very scary, difficult terrain that you are traveling when you access criminal justice system. It's not easy. So imagine poor, marginalized women who are saying, I want my right. We travel this journey with them and help in the access to justice.
Majlis's role has been to negotiate with the states to implement the legal rights of women. I felt it was very important to create a space where women can come and talk, we can understand the problem, and we can strategize for them what is best.
We work on cases of domestic violence where we provide legal representation to women. Rahat is a program conceptualized by Majlis. So as a part of the Rahat team, we provide social and legal support to survivors of sexual violence.
Conviction rate of cases that Majlis has handled is 68% as compared to the state average, which is under 20%.
Over the past 25 years, we have reached out to more than 50,000 women and children. We've also provided training and awareness programs for stakeholders, implementers of the law, as well as community organizations, colleges. And that number would be, I think, over 25,000.
ट्रेनिंग की वजह से हमको और हिम्मत आ गई है कि हम कुछ कर सकते हैं.
Every week they are there, helping us out, helping the children, make like painstakingly, selflessly they're working.
Today, she is a completely different woman. She lives alone. She's got a house of her own. She started working, so she's managing her children. And she's just a completely different woman.
Purpose of our program is really to transform her from a victim into a survivor.
So thank you very much. We have done a number of programs in the past with your college, and we are always very, very happy to be here with you. In fact, actually at Majlis, we have had students who have interned at Majlis while they were studying. And I think that, it is a wonderful experience when young students are interested in knowing about rights and knowing about social justice. So thank you, Kaustav, for organizing this, and thank you for the entire participants. There are a lot of participants, I think 160 of you who are here, who are curious about understanding the issues of social justice. So like you know, my area of work is very limited to the area of violence against women and children. So I will speak from there. I think it's important to understand, firstly, as young people and as citizens of this country, that above any law, it doesn't matter which law, which section, where you have a right, whether it's written in this place or that place, you should know that as a citizen of this country, the Constitution protects you. And it's really sad to know that people know a lot about religion, right? Because when we are young, we are ingrained with religion. It's in our homes, it's practiced, everyone observes it, follows it. Your parents will tell you what is right and wrong as per religion. But really, when it comes to the Constitution, I feel like very few people know their rights in Constitution. If I ask this whole bunch of, you are the cream of society, right? There's no one more privileged than you. You are educated, you are in a degree college, You have amazing professors who are teaching you and guiding you. And yet when we talk about constitution, there is very little awareness. I think the last time anybody studied constitution would have been in their ninth standard, and they would have been really bored with the whole, it's the small part of history, which is civics, and nobody really concentrates on that. But, it's such an important book. It's really the religion of our country. It's the religion or the space from where each one of us get our rights. So knowing our rights in the constitution, knowing our duties and responsibilities as per the constitution becomes the epitome. And yet nobody teaches you that. You don't learn it in school, you don't learn it in college, you don't learn it at home. And so you don't believe. Somewhere in your hearts, you question whether you have a right or not. So I just want you to know firstly that as a citizen of this country, whether you're man, woman, child, you are protected, and your right to life and liberty is supreme, is utmost supreme. It's one of the most important and basic rights, which is your right to life, your right to liberty, your right to live a life of dignity, your right to freedom, your right to be able to profess any occupation that you wish to. These are, when I talk about them as statements, they sound very vague. But when we question each of our lives and look within, let us ask ourselves, which of these rights are violated every single day? Every single day, our rights to liberty, our rights to freedom of expression, of being able to do, our right to equality. Every single day we are faced with these issues, but we accept them. And the people who accept them are mostly people from marginalized sections, because they internally believe that they don't deserve it. So when there are poor who are begging on the road, they do not think that they can have a better life. They do not think that the constitution provides for them to have a better life, that the government is obliged and responsible to provide them a better life. If somebody gives them something, they are grateful. They do not demand it as their right. And all of us exist in that space. But when I speak from the issue that I work on, which is in the area of women and children, I think that is the saddest and the most, violative space that we exist in. And why I'm saying that is that even in our homes, each one of you, and I'm not talking about poor people or marginalized people, I'm talking about you, to question what is happening in our homes when we are raised as girls. I know a lot of young girls will tell me, no, ma'am, we are equal, we have equality, we don't need these special privileges. But really, are you equal? The moment you are born, even if you have loving parents who want you and love you, there is an underlying discrimination that starts. It is, like if I ask this room, when you walk out of your house, do you walk with confidence or do you walk with fear? When we have to travel on roads, when we have to travel in buses, when we have to come to colleges, there is an underlying fear that something will happen to us, something can happen to us. And mostly those violations are in sexual nature. And the whole responsibility of protecting our sexual being is on us. And yet there is such a taboo that you cannot speak about these things. So nobody warns you, nobody prepares you that if somebody does something to you, what should you do? This is not a conversation that happens in our dining rooms. It is a very unstated, unmentioned occurrence, but girls carry that fear every single day. And what is it to live with fear? How difficult it is to live with fear, only a person who kind of faces it will know. We may put it at the back burner, we may have a little fun sometimes, but there's constantly a reminder and a constantly a fear that at any time you can be sexually violated. When it comes to women, we see their choices. Let's take you as a group of people, right? The choices we make of the education that we choose is also determined by our gender. Why are we in this college? Why are there such few girls not in an IAS or an IIM or an engineering field? Because it is accepted, agreed, acknowledged that that's for boys. You know, girls will study arts, they will become teachers, they will become, do any caregiving role, because that's an okay role for a girl. It's not very out there. They don't have to put themselves out there. They can manage family and work, so let's let them do the more soft skills, as they say. We don't even realize it. Very young, at a very young age, girls will say, I'm not good at maths. People are not good at math by their gender, but unknowingly it is accepted or understood that you will choose the softer roles. You will choose the softer roles because we are groomed in that manner. We are groomed to be nurturers. We are groomed to understand that finally, आगे जाके जितना भी आप पढ़ लो, finally the question that will be asked of you is, are you settled? Which means, are you married? Because if you are not married, then you are not complete. Then all your degrees mean nothing. The ultimate goal in the most progressive household, not talking about, I don't even want to go into the areas where there are oppressive households, where there are violent households, where girls are beaten, killed, tortured, raped in their own homes. I'm not even talking about those groups of people, which are a big majority in our country. I'm talking about the progressive households. That you start with an understanding that you are unequal, that you are less, that you have to adjust, that if you speak loudly, you are too aggressive. Speak quietly, speak softly is constantly a thing that is told to you forever. How can you speak softly if you want to stand up for your rights? Nobody teaches you that when you have to stand up for your rights, you will have to speak loudly, but they don't tell you that. And what is this whole, this whole emphasis that, okay, you may study, but only within this parameter, only within this area. You cannot leave the city and go to another city. You cannot go as per your choice to do things that you want to do. And then we come to marriage, which is the beyond and end all of all our lives, that if you are married, then you are a good girl. We have this concept of good girl throughout our lives. And then the ultimate goal when you get married is not to have a happy life, to have a fun life or to enjoy yourself. No, it is to stay married by any chance. We have to save the marriage by any chance. You could be facing any amount of discrimination, abuse, cruelty, violence, but you have to stay in the marriage. Why? Because your whole essence comes from being married. If you see in our country, we have 1 in 3 women facing domestic violence. That means in this group of 180, 200 people, there are 80 people who are facing violence. Here, right now, with us. That's the number. That's how high it is. And what is domestic violence? In our heads, we have a concept that domestic violence, if somebody brutally beats somebody with a stick or with some object and she's bleeding or she's in hospital, then that's domestic violence. But what about the everyday domestic violence that you face? Taunts about how they look, taunts about if you're fat, then that's not good, but if you're thin, then that's not good. If you're pretty, then you're attracting other men, and if you're not pretty, then you're not good enough. If you cook too well, then you're showing off and you're trying to take so much credit for it. And if you don't cook well, then you're a bad woman. It just never ending. The emotional, the verbal, the physical, it is the continuum of violence. And you would think that this is a country with no rights, because the number of women who stay in these violative situations, in these oppressive and abusive situations, is extremely large. So as a country, one would believe that this is a country with no rights. But that's not true. We are a country which has some of the best rights for women. And I honestly tell you that, having studied laws in the US, studied laws in European countries, I can honestly, and as a practicing lawyer, I can safely tell you that this country has one of the best, some of the really best rights for women. So then what is happening? Where are we going wrong? A lot of us will spend a lot of time blaming how the police don't work, how the courts don't work, how the courts take years. I agree. There are systemic problems. But the problem is not there. The problem is we do not believe that we can have a life outside of this situation, and that's why we accept. It is within us. It is whether we believe that we have a right, whether we believe that we will have zero tolerance to violence. Firstly, it has to come from within you. Do you believe that this everyday violence that you are facing, that you can come out of it? And somewhere we don't. Somewhere, even when we approach the police, even when we approach the courts, the whole focus is, I want to save my marriage. And the plead is that, can you make my husband stop committing these acts of violence on me? Right? It's not that this is my right and I will not tolerate this. We never come from that angle. It is, I want to save my marriage. Can you help me change my husband? And to people like you, and because you are a room of educated, aware individuals, you understand that the role of a police is to register a case. The role of a police is not a counselor. The role of a police is not a social worker. It is to register a case. But every time, even when we reach a situation of violence, which is of unimaginable amounts, women are going to police stations and saying, can you help change my husband? Can you tell him not to do this? So if the police asks, should I register a case? The answer is no. When we all know that when a crime is committed, then the response of the state is to register a case. But women are not able to do that because firstly, they don't believe that they have a right. They don't believe that they can stand up to this and then they can have a life away from this. So if you have to have a life within this violence, then the only thing you can ask for is for him to change. And let me tell you, given the patriarchy in our country, this is not changing in a hurry. It's not changed for thousands of years, and it's not going to change in another 1,000 years. So what is the answer? The answer somewhere lies within us. We are the next generation, and we have to ask ourselves, will we be living a life of violence, or do we believe that we can live a life outside of it, beyond it? And of course, there are so many support systems in place that can help you with this journey. But the people who hold you back the most are the people who love you the most, because they are the ones who can be a very, very strong support for you, which is your parents, your close family members. But each one of them, what is their advice? Just think in your own families when there was a case of domestic violence, an untold secret, everyone knows. Everyone knows she is facing violence. Everyone can see the bruises on her face. Everyone can see the sadness or the abuse, which is sometimes done in the open. And what do we tell her? We tell her that you need to adjust. It will get better. It will change. He will be better. He will stop. And sometimes we have women who come to Majlis when they are in their 60s. And they said, I have waited and waited and waited because they told me that your children are small. They told me, give it a little time. As he gets older, he will get better. Then they told me that your children will not get married if you are from a broken home or a separated home. So then she adjusts for a little longer. And then at 60, she walks in and says, I cannot take this violence anymore. My children are married. And when she goes to court, the court will tell her, but now you're so old. Now what will you do? So you might as well be in this, it's a little longer till you die. So this is where I say that at one level, you have a constitution which tells you that you have a right to equality, you have a right to dignity, you have a right to live a life free of violence. But how are we going to make that possible unless we change and truly believe that every individual has to live that statement of the Constitution? We have to live it in our everyday life. We have to live it when it happens at home. We have to live it when it happens in public spaces. We have to live it when it happens in our institutions. The number of anonymous complaints we get from college students about the harassment in colleges. And one thing you must remember is that a lot of girls believe that if they speak out, then they will be restricted. And that is a fact. That is really a fact. Every time a girl complains or tells her parents or her brothers that I am facing some violence, the first reaction of the family is don't go. Don't go to that college. Don't go to that workplace. Don't go to that road. Don't go to that place. And so we are restricting and limiting women's lives the moment they complain. So what is the reaction of girls? They stop telling anyone. They just learn to adjust within themselves, they manage somehow, and they don't talk about it. Instead of giving girls confidence and saying that if this is happening to you, then we need to put a stop, and the person who is doing it has to stop, not you. But we are constantly and again violating a very important constitution right, which is we are curtailing the freedom of women and girls. When it comes to domestic violence, I want to tell you a little bit about what are the laws available to women and girls if you are facing domestic violence. So, firstly, the Domestic Violence Act, which came in 2005, uh, very specifically talks about that it does not only address a husband-wife relationship, it addresses all domestic relationships, which means that a daughter, a mother, a wife, a sister, all of them are protected under the Domestic Violence Act. And the reason for doing that is that women are not only facing cruelty from their husbands, they're also facing it. Sometimes older women are facing it from their sons. Sometimes young girls are facing it from their fathers. Sometimes they're facing it from their brothers, especially when married girls want to come back to their maternal home. They are being restricted by their brothers and told, no, you cannot come. This is not your house. Now that you are married, you have to stay there. This is not your house. So the Domestic Violence Act covers all women who are living within a domestic household so that they can be protected within the house. And the way they have defined, the law has defined the domestic violence. Earlier, it was an accepted norm that domestic violence means physical violence. If you are beaten with an object, if you are bleeding, then that is domestic violence. Everything else is not. But that's not true. In our country, the law defines domestic violence as physical, as verbal, because there's a lot of violence in verbal violence where you are abused, you are told very humiliating statements. This would all come under verbal violence. We have emotional violence. So by emotionally blackmailing or emotionally torturing another person, that also would be domestic violence. Then we have a very important violence which is defined, which is called economic violence. Very, very subtle, right? You don't even realize it. For example, a woman is working, all her money taken away by the family. Why? Because if she has the money, she will spend it. So the control will be with the people of the home so that she cannot have power or control over her own money. This is a way of controlling someone. Not giving her money. She's a housewife. She's at home. She's completely dependent on this man. And not giving her money for food, for clothing, for basic necessities, depriving the woman and the children would also come under domestic violence. Taking away her stridan, taking away her jewelry, these are all acts of economic violence and they fall under domestic violence. Then we have sexual violence. Today, there's a lot of discussion happening about marital rape, that under the section of rape, marital rape is not included. So people assume that husbands can very freely rape their wives, but this is not true. This is false. This is a misconception. The law very clearly states that any kind of sexual violence is violence. It may not be included in the rape law, but it is included in other sections. And like I told you right in the beginning, our constitution is so clear that you cannot be forceful and do any kind of violence, whether it's on your wife, whether it's on your children. No violence is permitted. So how can it be possible that the law allows a man to rape his wife? It is a misconception, and I want to really clarify it to you today that rape may not, the exception may be included in the rape section, but we have the domestic violence laws which very clearly describe sexual violence as violence. And sexual violence is many types. Of course, a forceful act on another woman is sexual violence. But there are other forms of sexual violence that happen to women in marriages, which are also covered under the Domestic Violence Act. Now, what does the Domestic Violence Act, how does the Domestic Violence Act protect women is very, very important because it is not a criminal law. You know, we understand that people do not like to file criminal cases against family members because the purpose is not to put family members in jail. That's not what women want. And that's not the answer either, that you'll file a case, somebody will be arrested, somebody will be in jail. That's not how you will get justice. And that's why I think the Domestic Violence Act is a really, really wonderful law which talks about in the future. It talks about giving you relief, passing orders so that in future these crimes are not committed. So it's not a law which punishes you for the past, but it passes an order so that in future these acts of violence will not happen, and if they happen, then the person will be punished. So I think it's a very comfortable law that women can use, because when you talk to women, and like I told you that patriarchy is not going to go away for a long, long time, women still feel that their whole life is within family. And that's why they tolerate the violence, right? Otherwise, they would have walked out. For example, you are in a workplace. The boss is not being fair to you or is shouting or screaming. You will very easily, I mean, you'll try for a little bit, but very easily you will give your resignation and say, damn your job, dump your thing, I am going. I will find another job. Right? But we don't do that in marriages. We don't do that with families. And that is why we accept and tolerate more. And that is why they do more violence on us, because they also know that there is nowhere you can go. It is this power equation that allows people to tolerate violence and allows perpetrators to commit violence. So coming back to what the law provides, this law provides for relief. And again, the reliefs are very specific. For example, this law does not talk about divorce. That's another law, right? We have family laws for that. This law talks about, firstly, the most important order that it passes is called a protection order. A protection order is an order which is called a stop violence order. So let's say he's following you to work, he's screaming at you at work, or there are violence in the house and he's abusing or doing other acts of violence, the ones I described, then the court will pass a stop violence order and say that this violence should stop. To restrain him in future from committing these acts of violence. The second thing that this act or this law gives us in the form of relief is a maintenance order. Now, in a lot of times, one of the reasons why women don't complain is because they are financially dependent on the person, whether it's their father, whether it's their brother, whether it's their son, whether it's the husband, they are financially dependent. So the question is, if I complain, then he will stop giving me money, or he has stopped giving me money, that's why I'm coming to court. So then the court passes a maintenance order so that the woman will be able to financially manage, and that he cannot deprive of her and her children from the basic maintenance to sustain her life. And when I say sustain her life, it means that it has to be in the same level as the family standard of living. So it's not like a rich businessman can say, I will give her only enough to buy rice, roti, and sabzi. If he has to maintain her in the standard that is their standard of living, that family standard of living. The other order that this court can pass is a custody order for the children and a compensation order, so that whatever she has faced, she will be compensated for the violence. And that comes from this whole notion of equality. It comes from this notion of right to life, that she has faced violence and this is a grievous act, and she has to be compensated for what has happened in the past. So they pass a compensation order. And lastly, to leave you with a little bit about the Domestic Violence Act, that it protects women of all religions. It is not discriminatory. It's not that it's only for Hindu women or only for Christian women. It is for all women across communities, Hindu, Muslim, Parsi, Christian. All women can use this law to protect themselves against domestic violence. I'll stop here and I'll ask if you have any questions.
I would request the students to kindly ask any questions if they are having, so that we can have a question answer session.
I'm going to put the Majlis contact details on the group chat. So if you don't have questions now and you may want to reach out later, you can definitely reach out to us.
Ma'am. Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah. Ma'am, I'm Niharika from BA section, and I'm studying in my third year. And I really liked everything that you explained. I'm honestly in love with your explanation, and I would really like to work with you someday, sometime as an intern, maybe, if you are hiring. Okay. That's it, ma'am. come up with a question.
Thank you, and we
I
will
really
welcome.
felt the need to compliment you. I was trying to, stop myself since a long time because you were explaining, and I thought not to say in the middle. That's why I waited for the question answer time.
Thank you so much, Niharika.
You're welcome.
Ma'am, I would like to say that if you are going for any tour or anywhere where you're going to a suppressed class or an oppressed area where the women are not getting their social justice, if it is possible in any excavation, can you take us as well along with you? So we have an experience because the way you spoke today, there were so many things. Every one of us faces something or the other in some or the other way. And I never thought about it in the way that you told us today, that there is also another side to it. A coin has two sides, and we never think about the other side. Being a girl child, it's always that even if the others are looking at you in a certain way or you're being treated at home in a certain way, certain violence happening at home, somehow or the other way, since you are dependent on the other person, you have to be suppressed and you have to keep quiet. But after listening to you, after knowing about the Domestic Violence Act of 2005, there was a lot of things which I got to know. So ma'am, if you go for any excavation or anything, if it's possible, could you take some of us with you? It will really be a wonderful experience for us, and we will learn so much from you. We already feel so inspired.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you so much. Thank you. I think one of the most important things, because I think somebody mentioned it also, is that we need to create more awareness like this, and we need to create groups of people, especially women, to go out into communities and talk to other women. The reason I come to sessions like this is, I have to rush to court after this, but it's important to talk to people and create awareness, and we should then in turn create awareness for other people. So we should create a community where we ourselves go forward and talk to women who don't have the chance to come to a Zoom link, to come to a college ever. So how do we then create groups in our own area? You don't have to go across the world, and you don't have to go to another state or even another area. Just in your college area, look at the surrounding areas, go into communities and speak to women about what they can do when they are facing it.
Ma'am, it was a lovely session, I must say.
I'm going to post our feedback form on the group, so that if you all want to be in touch with Majlis, if you want to receive our communication, so we will have your details. So I'm just putting it there. If you feel you can fill it up, it will help.
Ma'am,
Yes.
yeah, so I just wanted to know that are you as a lawyer aware that the teenagers, like starting from 13 to 18 years, go through a lot of violence, not just in their house, but mostly their boyfriends or whoever they call their love of their lives, whatever they mean by that. Don't you think like they should be addressed about things that are not okay in a relationship?
Absolutely, that is so true, because girls are maturing so much faster. We have so much um, opportunity to access content on the internet, and I think people are getting into relationships very young, and there is a lot of violence that they face in these relationships, both sexual but also emotional, verbal kind of violence. um, Niharika, we have a law which is called the Protection of Children from Sexual Violence, and it applies to children under 18. Um, it addresses particularly what you are speaking about, because as you know, that age of consent for girls and boys is 18. So if
Yes, ma'am, I'm aware.
actually violates or abuses you before that, you're protected under the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act. I do sessions on that topic also, and maybe we can do another session discussing about what can girls do when they are faced with such sexual abuse.
Yeah, so here I think the problem is that they are just not provided with in, enough information about such things at their age. Like, according to me, schools are supposed to take some or the other activity like that, like just to address that this is not okay. We were taught good touch and bad touch. Just like that, this is nowhere to be, addressed. Till we got into the college, during my age, when I got to the college, like slowly, I came to understand that okay, there are some things that are not acceptable. But by the time, if that things must have happened in the past, I have faced it. So, when I should have took the action and get through it, I kept blaming myself. I'm not telling exactly about me, but a number of people like that.
Right, right.
Ma'am, there is another student. His name is Aniket Jha. He belongs to my class and he's traveling, but he's written a few words for you. So if you permit, I'll read them out.
Sure, sure, sure.
Good morning, ma'am. Myself, Aniket Jha, want to say a few words on this. Every single sentence you addressed was the reality which faced by the vulnerable sections, including women and children. This was addressed since decades, but there wasn't anyone who could come ahead and take the initiative for them. But I would really like to thank you for being the hope for them, as government is also trying to help a lot. But what stops them? There will be several reasons, either direct or indirect. But what is the major root cause, according to me, is society. Firstly, the mindset of society is blinded or restricted to a certain limit, which is wrong. But as you said, we are the creamy layer of the society. Over here, we can bring the change. As the mindset which has been developed in us is flexible in nature, but the society which has been practicing this through ages is having a rigid mindset, which isn't easy to change. So we can be the one who can turn the table at the best edge, but for this, we have to make our mindset ready to do so. This is the perception which I developed through your teachings. Thank you so much, ma'am. And I am assuring you that I will not dissolve in the societal worst process. I will remove the process. Also, I am an aspirant of UPSC CSC aiming for IAS. We have to deal with this kind of situations ahead and tackle them with great pace. And also, the organization you started is a motivation for me. A lot to come ahead, ma'am, including me. So I am planning to provide my best to the society. Thank you. Ma'am, even I am an UPSC CSC aspirant. So what you said and about legal rights, everything is going to help me a lot as well.
So wonderful. So lovely to spend my morning with all of you. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I would request if you can even say a few words, like something about other acts which we can approach.
Yeah, like I was saying, Nishika, there are hundreds of laws. Our country, every time there is an incident, our country brings a new law. So it's just, I do a lot of sessions, for example, on rights in marriage, personal laws, sexual harassment at workplace, talking about sexual offenses against children, talking about sexual offenses in women. It's just a lot and lot of laws. And Majlis has a course. It's called the Gender and Law course. It is for students who are interested in knowing a little more about different laws, and who want to kind of do social work or want to help somebody. So it's a very practical course. We cover almost 10 laws. We do the Old Age Act, we do women, children, labor laws, just so that you get a little glimpse about what laws are available, and how you can help people on the ground.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, there is a question in the chat box by Anurag Tiwari. He asks that, is there any right to anyone else who observes any relative or friend that is going through domestic violence can file a case?
So this is a very tricky thing, right? Because finally the agency should be with the person who is facing the violence. We have to strengthen them, we have to build their confidence, but we cannot do anything that they do not wish for. That would not be right. So let's say my mother is facing violence and I am very upset to watch it, or my sister is facing violence and I'm very upset when I watch it. But finally, it is her life, her journey. She has to build confidence, and she will build it if I offer her support. If I tell her, I am there with you, I will be there while you are going through this journey, but you do not need to accept it. And when she is ready, that's the time we should start the process. So one thing at Majlis is we don't take, cases by when a relative or a friend wants to file the case. We always only speak to the person who is going through the abuse and to understand what is it that they want to do.
I hope, Anurag, your question was addressed, and that was a wonderful session. So, is there anyone else who wishes to ask a question? I guess ma'am has addressed everything so wonderfully that we are dumbfounded. So,
Shalini, 1 second. Ma'am,
yes.
it's not a question, just wanted to share that, ma'am, first of all, I would like to thank you so much for such a wonderful and impactful session, ma'am. It was an honor to hear from you, ma'am. Ma'am, I must share that during your session, constantly I was receiving messages from our students, especially girls participants, that Dimelo ma'am is amazing and whatever she's saying is totally relatable. And actually, ma'am, this is what actually happened, to each and every one of us over here. And ma'am, I also completely agree with you that in order to bring about a change, we need our mindset. We need to change our mindset and approach. And I believe it starts with admitting that fact that injustice is being done. Things are being forced on women and on girls in the name of practice, ma'am. And we do not even realize that it is injustice. Ma'am, ये मैंने देखा है कि हमें पता ही नहीं होता है actually. So first we need to realize that it's been injustice and then voicing our opinion against it and taking a stand actually. And in my opinion, this needs to be instilled during the upbringing stage of a child, ma'am. That is important. Then it can be passed on each generation. Yes, ma'am. And ma'am, we really would love to have you again, ma'am. And as you have talked about internships also, ma'am, so that would be great if our students can enroll for such programs with you. But because as you have seen, us students are so keen in learning all these things. We have political science and sociology students, especially they are very keen in working with you and they really admire you a lot. So it would be great if you can share such opportunities with us and our students can join there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank
yeah,
you.
if there is something, ma'am, do let us know, please.
Yes.
Thank you so
Maybe
much.
we can, start the collaboration where we can do a project within your college, and then because they are very young, so we will have to, devise programs which they can do maybe in the area of awareness or some research. We can think of ideas of how to do that.
Would be great, ma'am. I'll be in touch with collaboration and we can proceed further, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for giving us this opportunity. Thank you so much. Yes, any further questions?
Last question in the chat box by Niharika again. She asks, ma'am, what are the punishments for mental abuse?
What are the
punishments for mental abuse?
So like I said, the Domestic Violence Act is not, there is no punishment in terms of jail. There are protection orders that this should not happen. And if it continues to happen, then there is punishment.
I believe your question was answered, Niharika. So we put an end to the session now. That was an amazing and very informative session, Ms. Audrey. The kind of work you do for the women and children is a true symbol of female and children empowerment in this brutal patriarchal society. I express my heartfelt gratitude to you. Thank you so much, Principal Ma'am, Vice Principal Sir, Sonika Ma'am, Kostup Sir, Sana Ma'am, and all the faculty and students for joining the session and making it successful. Thank you so much, everyone, and especially Audrey Ma'am. May I now request Mishika to kindly render a vote of thanks.
Is
Mishika, we can't hear you.
your no.
I think there is some technical problem at her and no problem. Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining
Can I
us.
address it instead of her?
Please go ahead. Please go ahead, Shalini.
That was a marvelous event. You know, one of the greatest power in the world is words which can bring change. Audrey ma'am, in mere 1 hour of session, your words, your speech has been so staggering, illuminative, and enlightening. Not only for us students, but for all age group. I am sure after this session, everyone is now aware of their social rights and will stand up against any kind of injustice they come across in society. Thank you so much, Audrey ma'am. I would now express my gratitude from the bottom of my heart to the backbone of KS Shroff College, our honorable principal ma'am, very committed vice principal sir, great and brainy Dr. Sonika ma'am, hard worker Kostup sir, dedicated Sana ma'am, and all the respected faculty of Department of Humanities, and last but not the least, all the participants who joined the session. Thank you so much, everyone, to take time out from your busy schedule to grace this event. I will now request everyone to switch on their cameras so we can take a screenshot of the event. It's a kind request to everyone. Kindly switch on your cameras. We need to take the screenshots.
I've taken the screenshots, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Sanana. Now, ma'am, with your permission, can we end this meeting now? Thank you so much, ma'am, for joining.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so
We'll
much.
be in touch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Please fill the feedback form.
Yes.
Yeah, please fill the feedback form.
Yes,
Bye-bye.
ma'am. We will take care of it, ma'am. Take care of it, ma'am. Yeah. Sana, ma'am, please post that feedback form in our group also, WhatsApp group.
Yes, ma'am. Please fill both the feedback forms.
Please copy it from the chat box and post it on the group also.
Okay, ma'am. Okay.
So they can fill it over there.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay.
Ma'am,
Yes,
she left, right?
no problem. You want to say something? You can communicate.
No.
A wonderful job, Shalini, Mishika. Wonderful job, beta. Thank you all of you for attending. And we'll look into this, see if we can arrange some internship and collaboration with Majlis, and we can arrange internship for you guys. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Definitely will work.
Yes, ma'am, please.
Yes, definitely, 100%.
Sure.
Definitely will work. And we are in collaboration with one more NGO, Rubru, and who is also working on the same line. So today we have a meeting with them. So maybe we will sign a MOU with them also. And then we will work with Majlis also. Don't worry, we have a lot for you guys. Okay? Chalo.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye. Take care.
Bye,
Sana,
sir.
ma'am, you can end the meeting.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Bye.
Sana, ma'am, Kostup sir. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.